What if I tell you that death and dying don't have to be a painful experience? You see, almost 2 years ago, I was terrified of speaking about death and dying. I'm from a culture where speaking about death and dying is taboo. My own mother told me no one in our family will ever die. For a while, I believed her. I grew up hearing that. So now I tell my husband, the reason for the Amazon boxes, I am planning for my 500th birthday party. And we have way over 400 years to pay for this. Interest-free, should not be a problem. Mom knows best, right? So I listened to Mom for a few years, and then I started nursing school. And this was an awakening for me. I remember begging my instructor for almost 30 minutes. I said, ma'am, please, I will go anywhere. Just don't put me on the floor with the patients who are dying. After all, I didn't come from a family of death. Nobody in our family would ever die. But I soon learned that taking care of patients who are dying was inevitable. It started with a patient I will call Miriam Gonzalez. I remember my first day on the floor of my clinical experience. I was with a nurse who, let me just say, she had worked a few hours and just wasn't as engaged as she should be. So I asked her, I said, Miriam Gonzalez kept pressing the call light. She kept pressing the call light. And I said, is it okay if I just go and sit with her? I was trying to get away from the nurse. She said, sure, that's fine. I'm sure she was trying to get away from me as well. So I went to sit with Miriam. I stepped in the room, and I was so nervous. I was just shaking. I didn't know what to say to her. And I stood there for a while, then I said, habla español. She said, sí. And I said, hablo poquito, entiende mucho. She said, okay. So at this point, I thought I had passed the test, so now I can sit down. I sat down. The first thing I said to her, are you really in physical pain, or you just need company? She was silent for a while. And then she said, I have one daughter. I spent my lifetime earnings on this child. She married, and she no longer cares for mom. I'm here in this bed. I'm dying, alone. And I thought, oh, this is actually happening. Somebody who's dying. I said, no, you're not dying. It's okay. You're good. Everything is okay. She said, I'm dying alone. Alone registered in my mind. Alone is still in the back of my head today. I spent the evening with Miriam Gonzalez. I learned her likes, her dislikes. I spoke to her about my upbringing, culture on the beautiful island of Jamaica where I grew up. And I thought we had a friendship. Even though it was only a few hours, I felt like it was a lifetime. She told me she liked this snack, Kit Kat. I had to look it up because I'm not a big sweet eater. The next day, I got back to the hospital. She was on the 5th floor. And I was running up the stairs, and I was going pretty fast. I said I'm from Jamaica. I was going pretty fast. I raced up the stairs, and I went right to her room. She was in room number 3, and the bed was empty. And I felt emptiness. I saw the emptiness in her bed, but I felt the emptiness in my belly. You could hear a pin drop. I walked in, and yes, I was breathing. Whew. I said, what happened to Miriam? I went back to the nurse's station, and the nurse said to me, that was Miriam on the gurney going down the elevators. As I speak about my friend Miriam Gonzalez, I still feel the pain. I still feel the burning in my stomach. I still feel the emptiness in the back of my head when I walked into that room. I saw the white sheets and I felt cold. I took a deep breath and I went back downstairs. I found my instructor and I said, how? How do we treat people like this in this amazing country? I can't think of a puppy who would die alone in pain and probably dirty. As I sat with Miriam that night, the only thing she complained about, not so much the physical pain, the emotional pain that she had to suffer. Prior to that, I learned about hospice, but I learned in the wrong way. I didn't learn in the way that Dr. Cicely Sanders thought of hospice to be. So Dr. Cicely Sanders started the first modern day hospice. She named it St. Christopher's. And her colleagues started this hospice with the end in mind. They wanted to revolutionize the way we think about symptom management. They wanted to make sure that death and dying wouldn't be a painful experience. I remember the fear in Miriam's eyes. I remember every word she said to me. She was not in physical pain. Miriam suffered emotionally, mentally. She was alone. She did not deserve that. At that point, I decided that I would go against what Mom said. She said none of us would ever die, but just in case it ever happens, I'd like to be prepared. And at that point, I was thinking selfishly, what if I have a family member or a friend? My instructor said to me, I see you having a career in hospice care. And then I started doing my research. And I realized that there are so many misconceptions about hospice and palliative care. I discovered some myth. And I also discovered the beautiful and amazing experience that anyone could have if they only consider hospice care. What would it be like if Miriam had a nurse, a social worker, a chaplain, and a nursing assistant by her bedside? That is what hospice offers. A nurse for symptom management and to monitor the medications. A chaplain for their spiritual well-being. A social worker and a CNA to ensure a good quality of life, the way Cicely Sanders intended it to be. As far as the myth, I think of all the benefits of hospice, but I'll share some of the common myths with you today. Myth number 1, hospice is only for patients with cancer. Well, according to the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, NHPCO, just about 1/5 of hospice patients have a cancer diagnosis. Hospice will care for patients with emphysema, cardiovascular, neuromuscular, and other common diseases that we face. So for sure, hospice does not only care for patients with cancer. Myth number 2, hospice care is expensive. Well, according to CMS, which is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, more than 65% of our patients, our hospice patients, are over the age of 65. and therefore they do qualify for the hospice benefit, which means there's no out-of-pocket costs for medications, durable medical equipment, and for the various care that a hospice provides. Myth number 3, hospice is a place. Hospice is not a place. Hospice care for patients wherever you live. If you live in a palace, hospice care will be there. If you live under the bridge, hospice care will be there. Or anywhere in between. You'll still have your chaplain, your nurse, your social worker, and your CNA, wherever you decide to live. So hospice care, in my opinion, is one of the most unique services in the healthcare system. And I'll tell you why I say it is one of the most unique. So hospice caregivers, most of who I've seen, are fully equipped to manage symptoms, to manage silence, to manage the pets. I have been in many situations where the best thing I could do was just listen. Isn't that amazing? Just listen. I have learned to listen to my patients, even when they tell me tomorrow's the last day. As much as I don't like to hear that, I have learned to listen. And today I understand that if hospice care is good for one of our past presidents, it's good enough for us. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that hospice care can add life to our days when it's definitely too late to add days to our lives. I am a hospice servant leader, and I thank you for your time.